Okay, in previous video, I introduced the custom REST endpoints, the main idea behind that one, right? Now, in this video, we will try to work on a simple custom REST API endpoint in Splunk. Okay, we'll be working on first the script-based one. Maybe then in future videos, I will try to cover the EAI-based endpoints as well. Okay, so let's say if you remember, like I have this TMDB app, right? Now let's say we are developing a chatbot outside, okay, which is basically querying this particular application, and it wants to know at any point of time, if you just, let's say, ping the chatbot, you want to know how many movies you have in your index. Okay, very simple use case, right? So in those cases, the chatbot needs to fire a Splunk query, right? Which will basically query this TMDB. If I just run this particular query over here, index equals to TMDB index, okay? And if I just run it for all time, right? So it should count all these movies, total 409 movies over here, right? And it should count, and it should give you a reply that there are total 409 movies available in our index. Okay, so in those cases, you do not need to build this particular Splunk logic, or basically if running a query inside the chatbot logic itself. You can just expose a endpoint from your TMDB app, okay, which can be consumed by outside application. It could be any kind of application. I'm just giving an example of chatbot. It could be any kind of application which can consume this particular endpoint and get the data, right? And this is a very simple use case, right? And now, based on your need, you can always try to cover complex stuff as well over here. Okay, now let's first try to build that one, then we will see how it works. Now, as you remember from my previous video, we specifically need one file called restmap.conf file, right? And we need a Python file which will basically handle that request, right? So if I just open the PPT I have shown you before. So this is the restmap.conf example of the script based handler, right? So I'll just copy this till this point. Okay, capability we'll see in future videos how to assign capabilities. It will be similar when you talk about script based or when you talk about EAI handlers. Okay, so for that, what I'll do first is I'll first go to etc apps TMDB app, as we are working on TMDB app. In local, let's say I'll just create a restmap.conf file. Okay, I'll just rename it restmap.conf file, right? Now I'll just open it. I'll remove everything over here. Now I'll just copy whatever we have discussed before, right? So this one. Now here we have to fill up this options over here, right? Whatever unique name or other endpoints name over here. Okay, now let's say a unique name I will be giving. Now if I just make this simple problem a little bit complicated, like instead of getting the whole count, let's say I'll be giving a language as an input, let's say either English, French, okay, and then it should correspondingly giving me corresponding count. Like if I just say, if I pass that language as English, it should give me a count of 148, something like that one. Okay, we will try to achieve that stuff as well over there. Okay, so that's why I'll just give the name of this unique name, let's say movie count by language, LNG. Okay, now match here, it will be the endpoint name, right? So I'll just give the unique endpoint name movie count underscore by underscore lang. Okay, if you see it over here, like this unique name and this name, it can be different as well. Okay, because this is a unique name, any name you can give it over here. This one, it will be used as a endpoint URL. It will be a part of the URL of the endpoint, right? If you remember from my previous video. Now the script name here, it will be the handler script name, right? So I'll just give a name, something name called movie count handler. Okay, so this will be the script name. Now here the script type, as I explained in my previous video, right, we will be always concentrate on the persistent handlers. Okay, we'll not work on the non-persistent one as it is not recommended by Splunk. So to create a persistent handler, the script type has to be persist in restmap.conf. So I'll just remove this guy over here. Okay, now handler, here we have to give the class name, right? So this is our script, right? So I'll just copy the same name over here. Okay, and we have to create a class name over here. We can give any class name over here as well. I'll say movie count handler. Movie count handler. Okay, so rest of the stuff like require authentication, it has to be true. Output modes, pass payload, HTTP headers, that's fine. Cookies, that's fine. So this is our restmap.conf, right? So this is ready. Now we have to create a Python file corresponding to that one, right? So again, I'll go to TMDB app. I'll go to bin folder over here. I'll just copy any of this Python file. Then we will try to edit it. Okay. Now the name of this file has to be the name we have given it over here, right? So I'll just copy this one and I will rename this guy over here. Okay, continue. Now this one we will update. So this, I'll just first remove everything whatever was there inside this file, so that we'll start from fresh over here. Okay, now the first thing we'll do is we will create a logger first. Okay, so that whatever we will be discussing and we want to, if we want to see the intermediate sum values in our code, we will try to log it and try to see it. Okay, now for that I'll just copy the logger code I have developed, and I have discussed the same logger code in my custom alert action video. Maybe if you are interested, you can go it over there and see it. I'll be giving that link over here as well. Okay, now this is the simple stuff, like it just creating a logger file, and it is setting up a logger over there. Okay, so I'll just copy this guy over here. So this is a method basically, and to work you need to import this logging and logging handlers over here. Okay, so this is the stuff, and I think over here we need the OS and sys as well, so that also I will just copy it. Okay, so we just created a logger over here. Now we need to understand the script based handler, right? Now as you remember, if let me show you the PPT over here. When I discussed in my previous video, for the persistent handler for script based, right, that means non-EAI handler, this is the file, right, we need to look into. It's under side packages, Splunk persistcon application.py. so let us try to see that file first. Okay, so we'll go to Splunk home. We'll go to any of the Python version over here. If you are working on Python 3.7, you need to go to correspondingly that file. Okay, now if I go to lib site packages, and if I go to Splunk folder over here, so there is a folder called persistcon, right? And inside that persistcon there is a file called application.py. Okay, let us try to see that file first. It's a very simple one. If you see it, it's a skeleton, right? So if you see, this is the class we have to import it over here, right? And we have to work on, and this class basically defined three methods: handle stream, and done, right? So handle is basically, this is the method which we need to override, basically re-implement, so that all the logic we will for the get request or the post request will be written over here. Okay, so we will be basically rewrite this one or override this one. And handle stream, I think it is kept for future use. And if you want to have any callback functionality, like after your script completed, if you want to handle something, you need to implement this done method as well over here. Okay, so we are going to do the same stuff over here as well. Okay, so how we are going to import over here, so this is how we are going to import it. So we will say from Splunk, okay, dot, so Splunk is the this folder name over here, right? This folder name. Then we need to go to persistcon, right? So splunk dot persistcon dot, so what is the file name? Application, right? So I'll copy that. So persistcon dot application, what we need to import? We need to import that particular class, right? So I think I already opened it over here. So this is the class over here, right? So let us do that one. Okay, so this is going to be our import over here. Now once we import it, we need to basically set up our own class first, because if you see it, our restmap.conf file over here, this is the class is responsible for handling that request, right? That means this class has to be present in my movie count handler file, right? So that is what we are going to do it now. So we'll say class. Okay, I will copy that class name over here. Now this class, how it will handle the request, it has to implement that persistent server connection application class, right? So that means we'll copy here. This will be the base class of this, but this will be the base class of this guy over here, right? Now in our init method, right? In our init method, we have to basically call this guy as well, right? This guy's init method as well. So I'll just do self. This has to be the first argument of any method in our class, right? Command line arguments and command args. Command arg. Okay. Now here we will be calling the init method of this class as we do for Splunk, Python classes over here, right? So dot init self. Okay, so this is the setup for my init method, right? Now we have to re-implement that handle method, right? Which is defined over here, right? So let us do that one. So we'll go over here, def handle. Okay, now in the handle method, the argument Splunk pass is the payload, which is basically it's calling this particular script with the payload. Okay, that payload contains a lot of information, like what will be your session code, what are the query parameters you are sending, those details. Okay, we'll first try to see that payload, then we will see the other stuff. Okay, so now let's say the name is in string. Okay, so here, so first we will try to see the payload logger.info. So this in string will contain all the payload information over here. Okay, so let's first try to see how Splunk is calling this particular script. Okay, with what kind of information, then we will try to bring the logic over here. Okay, try to develop the logic over here. Now to see that one, what we need to do, we need a way to run this particular code, right? See, if you have this particular class which is basically deriving from this particular base class, right, and you have implemented the handle method, so you are good to go over here. Okay, now this particular script also, the output is expected is something like you will return is something called payload. Okay, so let's implement that one as well, so that we will not get any kind of error when we will run this particular script. Okay, then eventually we will update these things as well. So this has to be the structure of the return when you return something from a custom script handler. Okay, at the minimum there has to be it has to be a dictionary first of all. Okay, now there has to be two key. One is called payload. Okay, payload, and it can have any value. Let's say currently we will just pass just success. Okay, or something like hi. Now because we still not develop the whole script, right? And it has to have a status. Okay, status, and the status will be the status of your script, like whether it is failing or or passed, so we'll be passing a HTTP status as well over here. Okay, let's say 200. Now this is the initial one. Now what we'll do is over here we will just create a Python code, okay, which will consume this particular endpoint over here. Okay, so for that, first we need to restart Splunk, so that's everything Splunk knows there is a handler exist and there is a endpoint exist. Okay, so for that, let me open Spider. Okay, so I created a simple get and post request for this one. This is a very simple one. I use just Python request module. This is a very simple one. If you see it over here, so it is basically when this particular endpoint will exist, right? So the endpoint structure will be something like services / the endpoint name over here, right? We still not implemented any query parameter, so we will remove that one. Okay, now if you see it over here, we have the endpoint URL, like as I discussed in my previous video. This will be the endpoint structure over here, right? And we need to have a authentication because we have mentioned that authentication has to be true. Okay, and for as I am working in my local, so for SSL verification I just made it as false. Okay, and I am just taking the response over here. Okay, but let us first try to restart Splunk once so that we will be able to consume this particular endpoint. Okay, we'll come back after Splunk restart completed. Okay, our Splunk restart has been completed. So we'll just log in over there, and to check whether the script is logging anything or not, we will check in our underscore internal index, right? So index equals to underscore internal, and source will be whatever the file name we have given it over here, right? So it is our movie count handler.log, right? So that we will see it. Let's say last 15 minutes we'll see it. Okay, now before that, let us try to consume that. So this is a simple get request, right? So if I just run it over here, I should be getting a high over here. If you see it, this one you are getting because we have made the verify equals to false, right? So that's why this warning is we are getting over here, but you can ignore that for now. Okay, but we got a high over here, right? That means at least the script was able to answer that question over here, answer the request over here. Now if I just see it, the movie count handler, so this is a typical payload which Splunk is calling the script with. Okay, let us try to analyze this particular payload first. I'll just copy it over here. So there are a lot of useful information and critical information also written over here, passed over here. So that's why it is not advisable you print this particular input in your log file. Okay, because if you see it over here, we have a output mode. Okay, now output mode, this is the fine. If you see, we have a server details, like whatever the different server details, and we also have a input option called REST map. Here you will find all the details we have put in our REST map file. If you see it over here, the name of the script, what is the handler file, which class is handling this request, everything over here. Okay, now if you see it over here, there is a key called query, right, which is currently blank, because here for a get request, the input we will be passing over here, right, it will be stored over here as a Python list. Okay, now here you will have the connection level details. Here you have the session level details, right, like the authentication tokens and all. And then we have the REST path level details and which method it is, either whether it is a get method or post method, you can check it out by this one, and header level information over here, right? So now for our case, what are the information we need it? We need the authentication token because we will be running a Splunk search using Splunk lib. Okay, now we need the method because we need to know whether we are serving a get request or post request. Okay, post will be handled similar way. I'll show you one smaller code portion as well how to handle the post request. Okay, and we we need the query parameter for get request, and for post there will be another one called form, okay, which I will be showing when we will be talking about the post request over here. Okay, so let us take these values in our code. Okay, so and as you see it over here, this is the JSON structure, right? So I'll just do one thing. I'll import JSON. Okay, now over here I will just say in string underscore JSON equals to JSON dot loads. Okay, this in string. Okay, so this is, I'm just converting this particular string to JSON over here. Okay, then I will just say session underscore key. So this will be our session key. So how I will get it? So this is our JSON value, right? So where the session key will be existing, it will be existing under session, then auth token, right? So first key value will be session, right? Then the second key value will be auth token. Sorry, it has to be the auth token, right? So this is our session key, right? Now what will be our query parameter? So it will be similar way, in string JSON, then the parameter will be in this query one, because we will be passing a language over here, right? So we need this one, right? And what will be our method? It will be again in string JSON, and the method over here, right? So we got the one we needed. Okay, so let us log it so that we will try to see whether we have successfully getting it or not. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll say session key. Ideally you should not print this one, but as it is a tutorial, so I am just doing it. But in actual production scenario, you should not be logging your session key anyway. So query parameter, we will see it. Okay, and we have a HTTP method as well, right? So method, we'll see it dot format. So we need the session key, right, and query parameter and the method over here, right? So this is, we are logging it over here. Okay, so now let us handle our get request over here, right? So we'll say if our method is get, right? If our method is get, that means we are dealing with the get request over here, right? So what we'll do it, we will basically run a Splunk search. The search will be something like this one. Okay, so first we will implement without the language query parameter, then we will see what change we need to do to pass the language. Okay, so our query will be something like this one, right? So if I just run a search, okay, so it will be something like index equals to tmdb index, okay, and then the stats count, right? Stats count, which will basically give me the overall count, right? Except the language, we'll see the language input after we successfully implement this one. Okay, so for that we need to run a Splunk search from our Python, right? To do that we can use the Splunk lib. Okay, so as I have not discussed the how to run a search through Splunk lib, I will just copy this code over here. Okay, I will be definitely discussing this stuff in detail in my next videos. Okay, so basically what we need to do, we need to basically create a service object, okay, using the host, the port, the app context, and the session key token over here. Okay, so I will copy paste this one. So this is the service. Then we have to build a search query over here. Okay, so for that one, what I'll do is I'll just copy this, as we will first do that one. Okay, so our query will be search index equals to tmdb underscore index, right? And then stats count, right? So this will be our search, and then as we have to run this search for all time, that means we have to pass this earliest time and latest time. So that is what we are doing it through this kw-args. Okay, and then we are basically running the search using this one shot method. Okay, so this is very simple code to understand. So here we are passing our search query and the timings over here. Okay, now this is how we are getting the result of this search using this reader object. Okay, so to work on this one, so basically you need this two guys, Splunk lib client and Splunk lib client dot results over here. Okay, so we will import those stuff. Now as you have seen it over here, to work on this particular code you need to have Splunk lib installed in your system. Okay, I already have it, so that's why I'm not installing it again. If you want to know how to install Splunk lib, I have created a video for that one. Maybe I'll be sharing that link in my video description as well over here. Okay, so we run a search, we got the whole count over here, right? So now let's see. So basically this is how we get the whole count. This is a reader object, right? So we loop it through, and there will be a field called count over here. It is nothing but it is having this search result, count equals to 409. So that count we are taking it over here. Okay, it is having, if it is having multiple rows, you can loop it through, but as it is having single row, this loop will be executing only once, right? So I will just paste it over here. Okay, so our count, and we have a payload val, right? So because we need the overall count over here, right? So currently we are only implementing the overall count, then we will pass a query parameter over there. Okay, we'll see the difference between this in string when we pass a query parameter. That's why I'm keeping it over there. So now I can safely pass this payload val over here. Okay, so that's why I kept that portion over there. Okay, now once we successfully get the count over here, right, so we can make our status as well, right? Status, we can create a variable and check some condition and make the status as 200, right? We can pass this status over here as well. Okay, so based on our query result, if it is getting some kind of error, so now we have to handle in try catch as well. So I will just handle the exception over here. So for that I will move it inside and I'll say except, okay, exception as E. Okay, I will just say logger dot info E over here, and also our status, let's say 500, I will return. Okay, some status over here, and also let's say I will mention my payload val as request failed. Okay, request failed, something like this one. Okay, so this will be our, when it failed, these two are going to be value of this payload val and status. Otherwise, if we are getting the whole count, this will be the one. Okay, so let us save it, and as it is a Python code, we do not need to restart Splunk, but as I have seen it, like when you do multiple requests for this particular endpoint, right, so Splunk will cache it. So if you change the code in between and want to test it, sometimes you need to delete the cache as well. So the cache will be a .pyc file inside over here. Let me go back to my etc apps tmdb app bin folder. Okay, if you see, it already created this .pyc file over here. Okay, so if you're making frequent code change and testing it, maybe you want to delete this particular file and want to test it, otherwise it will still run the code from the cache, and it will give you the old results. Okay, sometimes you need to restart the Splunk as well to change this to make your change take effect. Okay, so let us try to run it and see whether this is getting my new code or not. I'll just clear this console. So if I just run it now, let's see, invalid syntax, line 47. Let me try to see the code once. Okay, except it needs to be similar indent with try. Okay, so that was the issue over here. Let me clear the console and run it again. So if I just run it now, okay, if you see it over here, it has given me, it has sent me this overall count 409, right, which is basically matching with this count over here, right? So that means your outside program can now interacting with your application. And if you see, this is the base use case of a particular REST endpoint, right? So you have some kind of information or some logic which you want to expose to the outside world, but your outside world do not need to know how you are exposing, how the internal logic has been built. It just can call your custom REST endpoint and it will get that information over here. Okay, so we successfully implemented the overall count, right? So now we need to implement the language input over here, right? So this is how we will be implementing. So we will be passing the language as a query parameter, right? So let me pass that one. Let's say I'll pass something called ln for language as and en for English. Okay, so I passed this guy over here. Now let us first try to see how the input, this guy is changing based on query input. This in string is changing based on the query string. Is anything is coming up over here or not? Okay, so for that, what we'll do is, first we will see, before running this code, first we'll see in our previous run how it came up. Okay, so we'll go over here. We will, from our internal index, we will try to run this one for last 15 minutes. If you see, it is printing this session key query parameter. It was taking blank, right? Because that time we were not sending any query parameter, and the method was get over here, right? Now let us try to run with the query parameter and see the difference over here it will make. Okay, so if I just run it now, let it run. Okay, it ran. Now let us try to see the difference in the input. If you see, the query parameter is now taking a list over here, language as en, right? So this one we are going to process it, right? Now if you have multiple query parameters, how you will pass? You will pass as a ampersand, then let's say param1 param2 equals to val 2, something like this one, right? So if I just run this one now, let it run. So the structure of the query parameter will be something like below. If you see it over here, so it is a list of lists, right? The first item of the list is the parameter name. The second item of the list is the parameter value over here, right? So let us try to develop a method to parse this one. Okay, so what we'll do, we will pass the query parameter over there. Okay, and then it will basically create a dictionary kind of structure where it will have each and every parameter, and key will be the parameter name, and the value will be the parameter value over there. We are passing it. Okay, so let's say def, okay, parse, let's say query parameter. I will just copy this guy over here. So the first argument has to be self, the second argument will be passing a query parameter over here, right? So let's say we will just create the dictionary over here, param dict. So we'll define a blank dictionary, then we will just loop it through for p in query parameter, right? We'll just loop through that list for each and every element of list. So the first element, so first one, if you see it over here, if I show you, the first one is the param name, second one is the param value over here, right? So that means query parameter dict, okay, the key name will be p0, right? p0. So this is the p, each and every list over here, right? So this is the key name, the value will be p1, right? The second element of the list. Let us try to log this guy over here as well, so that we will understand what will be the structure of this guy, query parameter dict, okay, and then we will return this query parameter dict as well, return this query parameter dict over here, okay. So now after this guy, after we successfully get the query parameter, we have to create that particular dictionary as well over here, right? So we'll say query parameter dict is equals to this parse, right? This one, I'll just remove the self, okay. So this is how we are basically converting this list into a dictionary. That's all, nothing fancy we are doing it over here, okay. Now we have to handle this one, right? Now as we will be sending only a language as an input, right? So that language only will be handling it over here. Our query parameter dict will be having a single key value, right? And the key name will be ln, and the value will be the whatever value we are giving it over here, okay. So now if I just go into Splunk, what will be our Splunk query in those cases? So if I just do this one, tmdb index, if I just say original language equals to en, right? So it will fetch all the movies where original language is en, right? Then we have to do the stats count. So this will be our modified query now, right? So I will just copy this portion, because en portion will be passing it from our request, right? So we will come over here. So original language equals to, so till this point, let's format this particular string plus, so here it will be en, right, plus this one, and en will come from where? Come from my query parameter dict, right? So it will be query parameter dict, and the key value will be ln, okay. That is how we are defining our input, and we will be taking a string version of it, right? So that will be our new query now, right? So now based on whatever language we are providing over here, this query will fetch for that language only, and it will give you that language count over here, right? So let us save it and try to see whether this guy is working or not. We'll come over here and we will clear the console. Let us run it over here. Let's see if EOL while scanning the skill. Okay, let me see it over here. Okay, I missed to give this guy over here, so it was a mismatch of codes. Okay, so let us try to run it again. Okay, it is saying request failed. Okay, let's see in our internal log something is showing up or not. So if I just fetch for this one, it is saying global name parse query parameter is not defined. Let us go back to our code. Okay, so I missed one thing over here called self, because it is a Python class, right? So, and any method you want to call which is defined inside the class, it has to be like self dot something like this one, right? So let us try to run this again. Okay, again request failed. Let me see what's going on over here. Okay, here if you see, like, even though I fix it, but it is still giving me the old error because maybe it is running it from the cache, right? So let me try to remove that one. So let me try to go over here, remove that particular cache. If it is still failing, maybe I will just restart my Splunk once and then try it. Okay, so it was still not working, so I just restarted Splunk. Okay, and also I made one changes, like if you remember, I added another parameter over here, right? So I removed that one. So now if I just run it again, so it should give me the input or the count for language for English over here. If you see it, 148, right? So if I just see it in over here for index equals to TMDB index, right? For all time, if I just see it, so for EN it is 148, right? Similarly, if I just pass FR over here, it should give me 60, right? So let us test it out. So if I just pass FR over here, okay, and run it, it should give me 60 over here. Okay, so this is how we have basically implemented a query parameter over here, right? Now let us try to see how you can implement a post request over here, right? So as you can see, the method will be post, right? And if you see a separate post request over here, the URL is same, right? The authentication parameters are same, right? So here you are passing a data which is nothing but a HTTP form request, right? Some key with some values over here, right? So you are basically trying to post something to the system over here, right? So similar way you can handle the post request over here as well, right? Just like this one. So if method double equals to, I'll just not give any use case over here. I will just try to show you post is also possible over here. Okay, now if the method is post, here instead of query parameter we will get form parameter. Okay, so the form parameter will be, we'll try to see this one now, in string JSON, instead of query it will be a form. Okay, so it will be a form, FORM. Okay, so now when you get the input and you know the method, you can handle any kind of use case over here, right? So similar way, let us try to print this form parameter as well. Okay, so FORM form parameter is equals to this one dot format this form parameter, right? And you can set your own payload and status, right? So our payload val and the status, right? Let's set the status over here. Status equals to 200, right? So this is how you will be basically handling a post request over here, right? And let's say our payload val we will give, as we have not implemented any post, so post is not supported. Okay, now just a simple statement over here, because maybe for this particular endpoint we just implemented get. So if somebody is posting something over here, we will give this friendly message over here, right? And if you want to handle any kind of post request, so you can write your own logic over here as well, right? So we have it. Let's try to post something over here and see whether our code is working or not, right? So we will just run this post request over here. Okay, so if you see, it is giving me a friendly message called post is not supported now. And if you see the internal index, okay, the structure over here, so let us try to run that one. Index equals to underscore internal, source equals to movie count handler, right? So if you see the form parameter, right, some key and some value is passing as a form parameter over here, and that the same will be showing up over here as well. if you see it over here, right? So that means when our method equals to post, so there will be a new key will be added to this request, to this payload basically, which Splunk will be sending to this, to our script, is called form over here, so that you can handle this HTTP form inputs as well over there. Okay, so this is how you can implement a script based REST point handler in Splunk. Okay, in next video we will try to talk about a EAI based handler. Okay, see you in next video.